All right, let's go ahead and begin. Welcome today. As we have a very exciting group with us today at Learnfully, we're going to go ahead and start our 10 things this summer you can do to improve executive function skills. I'm really excited about this topic. Been doing a lot of research myself, so to launch in, I can't wait to hear what everyone can contribute. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you have questions, we're going to try to have some at the opportunity at the end to answer those. But if for some reason we don't get to them, still go ahead and forward them on to us, and we will follow this up. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to start with our agenda, just like we do with our students. Let us know what we're going to be doing. We're going to start with some introductions to these lovely ladies. Then we're going to do an overview of who we are at Learnfully. And then we're going to launch into what is executive functioning, how it plays a role into your child's education and everyday lives, some expert tips from our panels, and some services that Learnfully offers to address some of these needs. And then, like I said, some question answer time at the end if we have some time at the end. But please make sure to go ahead and put those in, and we will try to get that out to you. Okay. As you can see, they already switched it. We're supposed to be Jess today, our fearless leader, but I stepped in. She's not feeling well, so I am very excited to be here. My name is Taya Slingland. I'm the Director of Educational Services, and I'm going to go along this panel. So Dr. Karen Wilson, can you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Yes, wonderful. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on this panel. So I am a clinical neuropsychologist who specializes in pediatrics, and I am in the Los Angeles area, and my practice primarily serves children and adolescents who struggle with neurodevelopmental issues. And I'm the founder of Child Nexus, a platform that's geared towards connecting parents with resources that will help their kids who think and learn differently.
Oh, that's wonderful, Karen. Thank you for that. All right, Elizabeth.
Hello, welcome. Thank you so much, Taya. Thank you so much, Dr. Wilson. It's a pleasure to be here today. My name is Elizabeth Boyarski. I am an educational specialist and an executive function coach for Learnfully. I'm based out of the San Francisco Bay Area. I've worked in education for 15 plus years at this point. Love working with neurodiverse children. I best describe my work these days as being Mary Poppins, and I show up with my big box of tricks and make magic, AKA learning, happen in your home, in the classroom, at the library, wherever we're meeting that day. Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here and speak with everyone today.
And she's not exaggerating with that. She really does have a bag of tricks. All right, Jessica Watson, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. That's a tough act to follow.
Right.
No magic bag of tricks here, as much as I wish I had one. My name is Jessica Watson. I am actually in the Metro Detroit area. I have a child with autism and then several children with learning differences. So I've spent my years, I used to run an autism center. I now do some consulting for Learnfully, and I'm a full-time parent and autism advocate, more than full-time. Parent and autism advocate. So I'm looking forward to talking with everyone today.
Thank you for that, Jessica. You know, it's that village like we were just discussing. All right, so we're going to start off a little bit about our mission here at Learnfully. Learnfully is all about the growth of the individual child, realizing that they all have possibilities, and that we're just tapping into their unique presentations and to have them shine in their own right. We are all about the community. Everything we do isn't just here's your specialist, go off and do your thing. We are, as you can see, a very collaborative team. And we like to stretch that community outside of Learnfully to your community as well. So that could be all your key stakeholders, your speech and language, your OT, your school site, everything. Which brings us to the partnerships. We partner with some local Bay Area schools so that we can really broaden our reach and make those connections for the students. So our job here is to help your child reach their full potential. And a little bit more, each child that comes to us is thoroughly assessed The reason we do this is we want to look at something beyond just the here and now as far as their educational progress. We want to look at their social emotional learning, especially post-pandemic. We're seeing a lot of that being affected. And so we're looking at how they're attacking materials that can be your executive function as well, and looking at your child's unique strengths and weaknesses and how they perceive their world and how we can really make magic for them with Elizabeth's bag of tricks. So we also have a growing array of content that we are developing, tailored strategies. Every child's different, they learn differently, and we want to tap into their uniqueness to build a program around them. Ongoing feedback. We love to talk here at Learnfully, so we believe that as parents, you are partners in that relationship. So without further ado, what is executive functioning? So going just to launch in before we pull into our panelists, executive functioning is a set of mental tasks that we do in our everyday lives. And I had a professor not too long ago say, it is that supervisor that lives in your frontal lobe that tells your different skill sets what to do and which one to pull and which tool to use. And by us using that effectively, we assist our working memory process, our cognitive flexibility, being able to switch gears between task to task, that ability to inhibitory control, to think before we act or speak. So as you can see, it affects many a myriad of different things that we do throughout our day. Why do we do this? Because the brain is much more, that neuroplasticity, as it says, is alive and well. We know there's a lot more from where when I started teaching to now. Our understanding of the brain and how it can grow and develop is much stronger than previously believed. So that, looking at that, activating different things, tipping how we intervene to really activate their better use of those skills is more so than we once thought of. So we're going to jump into, I know I flew through that because I want to hear our panelists. I'm really excited about what they have to say. I got my pencil and paper out as well. So we're going to start with Dr. Wilson. Can you jump in and give us some of those tips for us?
I would love to. And I just love your description of executive functioning, because so many people think it's one thing, but it's just an umbrella term for a number of different things. And I think when we're thinking about how to improve executive functioning, how to build on those skills, some things to keep in mind is that executive functioning can be improved by, addressing environmental factors that contribute to executive functioning through training and practice, which you all do at Learnfully, and developing strategies to compensate. And so when I think about executive functioning, one of the things I'm thinking about you can do over the summer is to engage kids with cooking. When I looked at your list of things that are involved in executive functioning, and when you think about cooking, it involves planning, it involves organization, it involves task initiation, it involves shifting your focus from one thing to another, holding all of those instructions and the timer for what you're cooking in your working memory while you're stirring the mixture and preparing other things. And so you're building on all of those executive functioning skills just by cooking and involving children and adolescents in the cooking process. It involves sequencing, it involves being flexible if you don't have an ingredient or not enough of an ingredient, or you need to half the recipe or double the recipe. And so you're building on all of those wonderful executive functioning skills just by cooking. Some of the other things that you can do, again, we can improve executive functioning by changing our environment, is to engage in mindfulness practices. When we think about mindfulness, we think about it as a passive process that you're not really doing anything. But when you're engaging in mindfulness practices, what the research tells us, it actually helps with our ability to inhibit distractions. It helps with our ability to stay focused and to maintain our focus. And it actually calms the nervous system. So it actually reduces anxiety and helps individuals to better regulate their emotions. And so mindfulness is one of those amazing practices, particularly with individuals who have executive functioning difficulties that are related to ADHD or an intentional issue. It really helps to center an individual, to focus attention, and to help individuals with regulating those emotions. And we know that emotional dysregulation is often an executive functioning issue for many of the kiddos that we work with. And then finally, we think again in terms of environmental factors. Oftentimes we think, okay, summer's approaching, and so we don't have to pay attention to bedtimes for kids. Well, that's absolutely untrue. It's really important for kids to stay on a sleep schedule, because sleep is essential for everything that we do. You know, we as individuals spend about 1/3 of our days, in 1/3 of our lives rather, in a state of sleep. It's essential to our well-being, our emotional well-being, our physical well-being, and it's essential for learning. You know, when we're sleeping, that's when we're encoding all of these things that we've learned during the day, including how to cook a meal, into our long-term memory. And when we sleep better, it allows us to better process information that occurs throughout the day. And it also helps us to better pay attention the next day. It helps us to better regulate our emotions the next day. And it helps us to better engage with our environment. And so we know that sleep is one of those things that parents can absolutely control. So making sure that your kiddos practice and continue to practice good sleep hygiene over the summer, have set bedtimes. Often parents are surprised by how much sleep their kids need. It's not a time to be pulling back on sleep. We actually need to, particularly kiddos with ADHD and other neurodevelopmental differences, they actually often need more sleep than their peers who do not struggle with attention and emotional dysregulation. So school-age children between 9 and 12 hours sleep, and even our teenagers need 8 to 10 hours of sleep per night.
I love each and every one of those examples. Thank you for that. I'm interested in mindfulness. Could you give us an example of something that you have done? That would be just for me. Now I'm geeking out.
So when you think about mindfulness practices, it's really about sitting still, sitting in the moment, paying attention to how it is you're feeling, paying attention to your breathing in that moment, and really doing it without any judgment. So you're just sitting silently. It doesn't have to be a drawn out 20-minute, 30-minute period. It can be 2 minutes of just sitting still, sitting on a chair with your feet on the ground, sitting on the edge of a bed with your hands on your sides, just breathing in and breathing out. What you're doing is you're actually calming the nervous system, and you can actually feel yourself becoming more relaxed, becoming more focused. And that process alone actually prepares individuals for starting their day. For kids, during the school year, it's really helpful when they're just before they're about to start homework. So if there are kiddos who are doing some work over the summer school, or engaging in educational therapy, working with an educational therapist or a tutor, just that one act of breathing, sitting still, paying attention to their body and how they're feeling, letting thoughts go in and out of their minds, and then beginning their day or beginning a task can be very helpful.
I could see where that would be helpful. Thank you for that. I could see where it helped with that impulse control and the sustained attention. Beautiful. Thank you. Jessica.
Okay, so as a parent, my favorite thing about summer is that we have more time to work on things instead of running everywhere. We have a little bit of time to slow down and can concentrate on things we need to work on, rather than here's all the things, get in the car, we're headed to soccer. So one of the things that I try to do with my kids, and it changes a lot as they get older, is find something that they're interested in and a way that we can explore that together, and possibly a different way we can explore that together. Like gardening, we have a set area in our yard where we can garden. And my oldest wanted to grow pumpkins in the past. So she was very set. I just want to do pumpkins. No, I want to do pumpkins. So I was like, here we go. This is our learning opportunity here. We can grow more than pumpkins. Let's see where the pumpkins need to be. We started working on a lot of that flexible thinking. Like, I know you want a garden full of pumpkins, but if we put the pumpkins right there where you'd like to put them, the pumpkins might not grow. Let's look up what the pumpkins need to grow. Let's look up what else we could put near the pumpkins. You can make pictures and have the kids. One thing that we've done in the past that I really like is you can cut out whatever they'd like to grow so that they're moving pieces, and then sort of make a puzzle for the kids. So they're moving it around the way they need it as they look up different things. So if the pumpkins need partial sun or full sun, you're moving them to a location that will get the sun it needs. Then you're bringing in, they can research things, so they can look up where the sun is rising and setting. And that brings back in some of that controlling their attention and coming back to the activity, because, you know, as some kids do, they get on a screen and they can spend 20 hours on the screen. So we're redirecting back to, yes, this is the way the sun is setting, and at 6 a.m. it will be up, but we're still working on our garden. So there's just so many avenues you can do with gardening. And then the sensory aspect of it, which so many of our kids have, when you get into actually working on your garden, you know, digging your hands in there, working together, having that shared experience. There's really nothing like it. As a parent, I love it. And then there's so many added benefits and so many ways that you can go.
I can absolutely see how the cognitive flexibility would be in play. And I could see where the planning, organizing, initiating tasks, and then self-monitoring as you walk through. I mean, there's so many different aspects of
Well, and there's such a feeling of mastery, which is something that I work with. You know, so many of these kids don't feel very confident. So there's nothing, I mean, adults get excited when they finally grow a tomato, you know.
Sure.
So for kids to get to go out there and see what they're growing and making, it's such a nice confidence builder, and something that it's just sort of that way to like go outside and reconnect all the time, because you're continuously checking on something that you did together. And, you know, they'll run out there and see and call me out. And I'm like, oh, you still want to be interested in something with me? You know, so it's just a great way to incorporate kids of any age, but especially the olders, because you can kind of get them to keep coming back to you. So,
and they want to eat it at the end. I mean,
right.
It's like a win all the way around.
And then my second one goes back to that having the extra time. We sort of, you know, when you look at a new school year and you're figuring out what your children need to do to be prepared and to get things ready for each day, we do the same thing when we start summer, but it's more fun because we're doing things that are based on their interests. So for example, like if they are going to be going to horse camp this summer, we need to figure out, okay, so where do we need to keep all of our horse things? What do you need for that? What works best for you? Do we need to use buckets? Do we need to use bags? Do we need to use shelves in your room? And sort of creating those new systems that work for them. But for me, it's a great way to have one-on-one time with each of my kids. Like I always make it a point to go in their room, close the door, and we discuss, you know, what's coming up, how their schedule changed, and how we can make systems that will work for them and ultimately work for all of us, because we might get out the door on time. And there's all different ways. Like I said, I have my daughter who has autism loves bags. So bags it is. If she needs a bag, she does Special Olympics soccer. So if all of her soccer stuff needs to be zipped in a backpack and we have a soccer backpack, perfect. Then that's a place for it to go back into and come out of. And if she helps me establish that and picks the backpack, you know, it reinforces where it is, what she needs, and what she needs to take with her the next time. So we try to do that beginning of summer, the same way we would do it before the school year starts. And plus it's a good time to talk about what worked and what didn't work. Like by the end of the school year, we all know like what things look like. They don't look anything like they did when the school
you made
year
a
started.
really good point, because of the self-awareness. We don't want to fall into the trap where we become their executive function.
Right.
But by you bringing them in, you're teaching them the skills to be masters of their own universe.
Right.
By careful guidance. So thank you for bringing that up. That was perfect.
And then my last kind of tidbit that I try to do much more of in the summer, again, we have more time and we can go a little bit slower, but I can also sort of push a little bit more and exercise some of that flexibility. One of my children likes to sort of be the master of every conversation and the master of the schedule, possibly my one with autism. So we try to push boundaries a little bit more in the summer, and we still keep some of our structure, but we try a lot more of, you know what if we did this first? Or what if we let your brother choose instead of you always sitting right here in the car? Maybe you sit over here and we let him sit on this side this time. So you can do it with anything from the simplest things like where people sit in the car to, the things that are more difficult for them to be flexible on, and just sort of, try to push boundaries a little bit. But you're still there to give that support, and you're not in that normal rush that you're in during the year that takes, so much longer. I keep thinking of my oldest daughter who has autism. We were picking her up the other day and she was really warm, and I knew like when we picked her up, things probably weren't going to be wonderful. And her brother was sitting in the front seat, and I said, your sister's getting in, she's a little bit hot, so let's not poke at her at all. And he said, I never poke her, I just feather dust. And I thought that was the best example because it's so true. And I'm like, this is what we do in the summer. We feather dust. Like, we don't poke at her, but we definitely try to expand things a little bit. And, maybe we have more flexibility with seating in the car by the end of the summer, because he did his feather dusting all summer when we picked her up from camp. So it was a great way for me to sort of rephrase, another way to put it is, yeah, we can kind of feather dust things all summer and see if we can get some flexibility in there.
Out of the mouths of babes.
I know. I'm like, what a great term. I'm using that.
I'm totally stealing that one.
Yep.
No, you're so true about the cognitive flexibility. And that is another excellent point. We want to make sure that when we're applying some of these comfort things, that we don't become too rigid. Sometimes when we apply some coping mechanisms, it becomes this box that it has to fit into, and we want to make sure to make that box a little more rounded. So I like
rigid for the whole family. So
yeah,
it's a good chance to increase some flexibility that then helps everyone. And it also helps them to learn how to be supportive of her, but also know that there's give and take, and we're honoring everyone's feelings. And
exactly. And that in itself becomes another lesson, so
right.
that we are respectful of not just our own boundaries, but the boundaries of those around us. And by doing it in an environment where it's slowed down, and that's a very important point to this, is that you don't want to do this when you're hurrying out the door to school.
Right.
You want to do this in a very methodical
stress
way.
time. Absolutely.
Lovely. Love it. Thank you. All right. Example structure with agency. So go ahead.
Yep. So these are some cards that we made actually for everyone that's attending. We'll have them up on the Learnfully website. We have all kinds of different activities that you can do this summer, because we'd like to challenge everyone to work on executive functioning this summer by sort of sliding it into your daily activities. And some of these things you probably already do, but you might not realize that you're working on some of these things. So we will be putting cards up on the website. You can print them out. You can create a schedule with them where you put them on your calendar, or you can try to keep working on that flexible thinking, put them in some kind of jar and let kids pick each day. So they still feel like they're in charge, but they're actually picking something that might change up their day a little bit. So we have about 32 different options that you'll be able to print out, and they will be available on the Learnfully website.
Perfect. And I do like the point that it shows that just because you're working on one executive function skill, sometimes there's layers. And I always say, when you're in school and a teacher gives a assignment, it's the cognitive combo pack, where you're planning, organizing, initiating, self-monitoring, and that's all affecting your working memory. So it's good to show that, just because you're working on one doesn't mean that other ones aren't getting tipped at the same time. So thank you for those. Those are great. All right, let's look at Liz. You're up, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Taya and Jessica. Great. So I am going to start off with one of my tips that I practice myself personally. Just used it this morning, cleaning up my kitchen. Pretty much use this one on a daily basis, using the Pomodoro Method and pairing it with music. And what is the Pomodoro Method? Pomodoro Method is setting a timer for tasks. All of us have an emotional response to all tasks, but specifically folks dealing with ADD, ADHD, that response, that emotional response, or that emotional dysregulation is amplified if you're dealing with if you're dealing with ADD. And so when you're working, when you're trying to improve executive function or strengthen your ability, with ADD and ADHD folks, I always start with, how can we change the emotional reaction that we have to doing the dishes, starting homework, doing work, or doing any task that gives us that that very charged feeling. So taking a timer, setting it for 10 minutes, and then also pairing it with a song that that we know is just good energy, good vibes. For teens, this could be a freebie where they can share some of their music with you as long as it's appropriate. For your littles, what is that song that's going to get everyone moving, everyone working, everyone just kind of feeling good and changing the mood, changing the tone. To piggyback on that, I always say to parents, what is your kid's anthem for leaving the house? For me personally, it's keys, wallet, cell phone. What is your kid's anthem? What is it that they repeat to themselves before they leave the house that they know that they have everything? Is it keys, wallet, cell phone, soccer bag, keys, wallet, homework, etc. So, and then also, by setting a timer and scaffolding the task down into little timed chunks, it just makes it manageable. You can see the progress, and then also sprinkling in that positive reinforcement is very helpful, especially cleaning tasks, organizing tasks, any of those tasks that are very fine-eyed, detail-oriented. Number two, piggybacking on what Dr. Watson said, all of the outdoor hands-on summer activities. So this would be something involving your child and having them help to plan a picnic or a barbecue, and then involving them with part of the planning. So making a list of who's coming, or the food, or the games, or the playlist, part of it, so that they're using seeing the big picture, and then what are the little pieces, what are the fine pieces that need to be taken care of and done to complete the project, to complete the whole task. This can also be working together with your child to rearrange the furniture in their bedroom, to do a cleanup in your yard, to go to the beach one day and do a beach cleanup, to clear out a cluttered space in your home, and then also a cooking task too, where you play sous chef and you're giving each other feedback. Another idea is planning an excursion or a day, going to the tide pools, or going bird watching, or going to botanical gardens, something where beforehand you and your child or you and your teen, or coming to San Francisco for the day, or a big city, you're researching the area beforehand, creating a list of like places that you want to go see, or birds that you're going to be looking for, marine life, and then going out and how are we going to find these items, and then checking it off the list. That is also a really great exercise in using strengthening and using your executive functioning skills. Also, doing art projects, but in a different where that require following directions. And I have been using this program recently with my students. It's called Draw Together, and I will link this in the chat. And it's an art podcast where the students are listening to the drawing instructions and then creating the piece as they listen. Wendy Mack also has video, and that's one component too. You can watch it on video. But I find that listening to the instructions really, and beforehand, even if you're working with a student who is ADD, making sure that they're in a calm, following their mind, doing a mindfulness practice to, get them present. And then going into the activity is a really great skill in terms of let's zone out and let's just be present and listen to the instructions and then produce. And then next off, having weekly feedback sessions or reflective discussions. What I mean by this, maybe this summer, something different to try that I've had a lot of success with my students in the classroom and how to carry it out into the summer. Instead of having, a points chart where you get a happy face for completing tasks or good behavior, having this more of turn into a feedback session where maybe you and your child have a weekly coffee date, ice cream date, walk, or just some time on the couch where you keep a journal or just talk and you share your feedback. Like, hey, Elizabeth, I really liked how you were helping me with your brother last week when I wasn't feeling well. It was really nice to see you get along and take that leadership role, and really sharing that great feedback. Or also, hey, Elizabeth, I just want to let you know it was really hard for me to see you not following instructions or not listening and not waking up in time the other day. It made all of us late for camp, and that was really hard. It affects the whole family. It affects me coming out to work, and having this dialogue so that it's a great practice in terms of understanding and it's in the motivation behind it, so that your child isn't motivated by this external prize. Instead of it's more of an internal feeling. And this is something that I know a lot of my students, have with their teachers during the school year. So how can you create that for your student or for your child this summer? And it's a really nice little bonding time where you can really nurture and grow your relationship. And then finally, and this is also shared in from our beloved Jess, and this is something I use all the time, just gamifying. And what do we mean by this? Just making sure this summer, going away from the screen, what types of games are you playing where there's strategy involved, mindfulness, where students are being so present? Jenga is such a great activity. I use that all the time with students before we get started on doing our educational therapy. Monopoly, Uno, Guess Who. Any type of role playing, all of these games are invoking those executive function skills that we want to make sure that they're using, engaging, and building on. And
I love all of those, as far as especially when you talked about the reflective feedback. That is so important for a lot of students when they have an executive function deficit. We're looking at where they're not self-aware. So that reflection allows them to be aware. So it's one thing to have the skill, it's another thing to be aware you need the skill. And the only way we can do that is to really guide them through that pattern of awareness. So I love including that in there as well. And I have to say that technique with music is so phenomenal. One, it does connect you with your older student, it makes it something that's enjoyable for them, but also it allows them to realize that, in my world, I like everything has to have a place. It's just how that's my executive function in a nutshell. And to go, okay, I got 10 minutes to put everything in its place. It gives it a time. And by giving it a time, it's not just this open-ended, and it makes them aware of what time is. So understanding conceptually what elapsed time looks like is another skill. So thank you for those. Those are fabulous.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to go and Elizabeth, I'm going to have you jump in if I miss anything here. We're going to go into the Learnfully, and she's my co-friend here, steps to potential. So as I mentioned at the beginning of our webinar, we discussed how we take students in, because we really believe in that individualized assessment process so that a specialist takes in not just academically, but is watching for how, engagement and ways that we can really tap into their way of learning. And that starts with some questionnaires, because who knows your child more? As Jessica showed us, you guys are invested, the parents are invested in what a child looks like. And, opening that discussion through the caregiver lens really gives us information and really fast tracks us onto the right path. And also those IEPs, those neuropsych reports, those, previous care providers, all those reports, we look at them. We don't just take our assessment. If there's more data, we love data. We'll take them in, we'll look at them, and it'll help us with our recommendations. The assessment itself is a 2-hour assessment that we go in and we look at your specific areas of concern. We come out with what we call an initial area to address. And the reason I say initial is because it's not like the IEP where we go, okay, for the next year, we're going to do this. It's not effective. We want to be an ongoing group of conversation where we're constantly consulting you and we're letting you know what's going on. So that's an ongoing part. And at the end of each month, we come back to the table, we discuss, this is based on our initial recommendations, this is what we addressed, this is how they performed. We suggest we go this way to make sure to broaden that reach and really grasp into what's needed. And we look at it developmentally. So it's not just, okay, your child's a second grader, we're going to look at second grade standards. It's not that we don't consider those. We just want to know, okay, if your child's not reading developmentally, chances are there's some holes back here and we need to fill them to make sure your child is not just meeting second grade standards, but is fluent in it, is working comfortably, because we want that fluency element. So that is Liz, is there anything I missed?
No, that is it. But I will say that, this is also just more information that if you have had a school year where there have been some struggles and challenges, and you're coming to Learnfully to get support, getting that assessment just will kind of take you on that next step of, if we're looking at this as a map and we're on a journey, it will just give us, okay, which road do we need to take next in terms of, are we looking at, is this a learning, is this a learning difference? Is this something else? Is it dyslexia? So it's all, yes, so that's the other piece that is great.
I do like that you said that. Yeah, we want to keep it compact. We want to make sure that we are getting right to the root of the problem, because we don't want to waste time. Our goal in like Jessica had mentioned in her conversation is that independence. We don't want to become their executive function. We want to teach them how to be masters of their own. So that, and by doing that, we have to make sure we're coming at it the way their brain works, so that we can compact that and be its most powerful during those sessions. Okay, so our instructional services are multisensory and of course evidence-based. Why evidence-based? It means that it's a proven track record of performance. We don't want to just go, okay, you know what, let's try this. Let's try this. We want to do something that has some research behind it. Just like we like the data that comes from your team, from your experience, we want to make sure we have data-driven results. As far as the format, we are here to serve our learners. We have virtual, we have in person, we have pairs, we have small groups. We have my favorite is the asynchronous, because that personally is how I love to learn. So that is, we have where you check in with a specialist, and we have asynchronous content. We are here to meet your needs. So and it's auditory, visual, kinesthetic. It's all the different ways we map the brain. Okay, it looks like we are at the end of our time together. Is there, let's see.
So Taya, one question that came up was for the activities that were mentioned, which ones would you recommend that are targeted for specific ages? So do you have any recommendation for the kind of the tips that were listed? Would you recommend them for all ages or specific ages?
Well, I'm gonna, Karen, unless you want to jump on, I will go ahead and jump on with, there's a couple things that you had mentioned. We'll go down the different patterns. One of them that Karen had mentioned with the mindfulness, I have done that in the classroom, just especially before state testing. I've done it as low as kindergarten. To just make them bodily aware. There's ways to, like she had mentioned, the grounding where you put your feet flat on the floor and you kind of hold your hand on your chest and you kind of become aware of your breathing. And it could, when you're introducing that, the only thing when you're introducing it to littles is that you want to make sure you do it in micro goals. So you do one thing, model it, have them do it. Then you do another thing, model it, have them do it. You see, we're going in all of this when you're doing the introduction, you just make sure that you're doing it slowly. Don't make it hurried. You want to make sure, because they're going to take their cues from you. So if you're doing it quickly, they're going to do it quickly, and it doesn't necessarily have the best results. So the mindfulness, I've done it pretty much through all my high school, or all the way through high school, as far as bringing that anxiety down. Yes, we will send the slides to the attendees as well, that is the video. The next thing that she had mentioned was, what was the other one? There was another one.
You can look back to your slides if you want.
Yeah, let's go ahead and pull back the slides. There we are. So healthy sleep habits, obviously, using the recommendations. I cannot speak highly enough as an educator from the classroom in both special ed and general ed. We know when your child's not had sleep. It really does make a cognitive deficit situation. So aside from their ability to control impulses, their ability to function in the classroom is really, really impeded by sleep. So if you were going to do one thing through the summer, is get them on a tight sleep schedule. I mean, obviously there's going to be events and stuff, but didn't go back to your sleep schedule. If you do one thing for your child, do that. And the other one, cooking, bar none, is one of the best activities to start. Put them on a chair when they're in preschool and give them tasks to complete. Slowly teaching them to do things with their hand-eye, that motor coordination, that increasing the complexity. All of that is great executive function, but the cognitive motor hugely impacted by cooking. So and Jessica, I know the camera went off for you, but is there anything that you wanted to say as far as age groups for yours?
Yeah, mine are all teens now, and we do these things now, but quite a few of them we've been doing, through the elementary years, and you just changing it a little bit by the age, but almost everything you can do, elementary on up.
Yeah, I think that as far as the grade is just looking at, like I said, those micro goals, making it age appropriate. As far as if you're going to be gardening, right, obviously you're going to have something right, smaller and age appropriate sharpness wise, and just having them be like your little partner as you work through. But another thing, Jessica, that you mentioned was striking the balance. Could you give a little bit of what you did earlier versus what you did now?
So part of a balance for us has been trying to shift over to creating systems that work for them rather than creating systems that work for me. So I like to try to give them more independence and more agency over their life, their schedule, how they need things to be, rather than mom set these things out for you. Here's your bag and here's what you need. Mm-hmm. Now we talk through, okay, what do you need? Would you like to put it in a bag, or should we put your things in a bin? Would you rather have them on the shelf? I try to give them more options and start to help them create systems themselves instead of working with my system, or, the whole family does it this way. I do a lot more where I try to work on helping them decide what works best for them, and then helping them create that for themselves, so that hopefully one of these days they will be creating it themselves.
Perfect. We have a question that's really for you, Jessica. Is one of our questions is about teenage boys with ADHD autism. what would be a recommendation? If you were to pick one, what would you make? For a twice
For
exceptional.
what type of things to do?
Yeah, if you were to pick out something for them to do this summer, which one would you choose? Or would just a bevy of the three?
I think honestly, because as my oldest gets to the older age of things where she, we really want to see more independence. I wish we had spent more time earlier on helping her become independent. So if there were anything I could go backwards and work on more, it would be creating those systems that work for them. So really spending some time this summer helping them figure out, okay, what helps you remember what you need best? Is it a list? Is it pictures? Is it, putting things in a song, like you had said earlier? What are the ways that we can help you do these things without needing mom's help every day? So that, your end goal is that when they're 18 or 19, they'll be able to do these things without, a little push from mom. And did you remember your charger and your water bottle this time? So if there was one thing I could go back and do in those early teen years, it would definitely be, really talking with them and having more conversations about, how can we help you be the most successful in getting out the door, or whatever their different challenges are, whatever you see those areas of weakness, working through, how can we make that easier for you? And how can we help you handle it on your own without mom?
Okay, to piggyback on that, what would you do if with the resistance, that initiation issue? So if you got resistance from your child, how would you approach that?
We have so much. I could talk about resistance all day.
What's your favorite?
So my favorite is finding a peer or someone else that they respect to help them. I actually, one of my younger daughters works extremely well with my oldest daughter. And I'm like, you know what? If you can get your sister to put X, Y, and Z away in her room, go for it. But she's able to model things and do things for her sister in a way that I'm not able to do. So if there is anyone, a cousin, somebody they look up to at school, anybody that they can model some things after to get over that resistance, that's gold. I mean, for us, that's been the key.
That, that it's interesting you should say that, because that came up with one of my former students. Listens to my son really well. It's just he's older. They went to the same school for a period of time, and I don't know that I ever put it into words, but that does make sense to me. Yeah. So that model, finding that person, and it goes along with the age. So if you have a high schooler, where the peers really are the end all and be all.
Well, and they want to be seen as older as well. I mean, my daughter emotionally is younger, but she still will kind of stomp her foot and like, I am not a little kid, so I think that if she doesn't have to hear it from me, but she can hear it from somebody else that's closer to her age, she feels a little bit older, and she feels like she's doing something like them that she considers her peer, rather than I'm doing something that my mom told me to do because she still thinks I'm a little kid.
I love it. Thank you.
I'd love to jump in if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Liz. So I know my video can't be put back on, so it's Karen Wilson, but I'm just thinking too, and answering the question about, 2E kids, it's really important to connect their interests to the activity, to keep them engaged and to maximize engagement. So I often say, if kids are interested in video games, then how can we help them, enroll in like an activity where they program and they make their own video games. If they're interested and they love to eat, sign them up for a cooking class, right? If they love theater and they love watching movies and they love watching television shows, can you sign them up for a theater camp and use their working memory skills in memorizing lines and just, again, practicing those visual and motor coordination cues based on where they have to be in a certain scene. So again, it's about connecting their interests to the activities and the things that you want to build in them, because that will keep them engaged. But at the same time, they're building these executive functioning skills. And we know that, we've been talking about executive functioning, but executive functioning is essential to every aspect of life. It's not only important for academics, it's important for social skills. When they get older, it's important for, work ethic and managing their health. And so we're building all of those skills at an early age to prepare them to be successful adults.
It's excellent. It's an excellent point, Karen. You're right on. In far as that's exactly the way we look at it when we're doing instruction in the classroom, is to make sure that we are incorporating those preferred activities. It still has the same goal in mind, but anytime a child's engaged in fun, let's face it, they're going to learn it stronger than something that's forced upon them. I love that. Elizabeth, did you want to put any ages on yours before we go? We have a couple minutes left.
Sure. No, I'm going to say that this is all modified, K through 12, just depending on, what age and whatever engages the student. So, if you have a teenage boy who probably isn't interested in cooking, but you want to plan a barbecue or you want to plan a family meal, maybe they can create a playlist for the evening, or they can do a guest list, or they can make the menu versus actually cooking, making sure that they're going to have their emotional response is going to be one of enjoyment and engagement.
Oh, I love that. That is perfect. You're right. You could even go so far as to say, okay, you need a starch, you need a this and this, in the menu, and let them have at it. And it can even be a research where they have to research that out. I love that idea. Yes. All right. Well, that is it for today. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to Dr. Wilson and Jessica and Liz for joining us today. Your input was invaluable for us.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so much.
All right. Well, everyone take care.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.